Rachel, tell us about SAVEM.
SAVEM stands for South Australian Veterinary Emergency Management, SAVEM. It's not intended to be a contraction of Save Them, which quite understandably some people think the name relates to, but it's an acronym, SAVEM, South Australian Veterinary Emergency Management. After the 2019-2020 bushfires, we took a look at our training material, and obviously the learnings from those fires meant that we needed to update and redesign our training modules based on those learnings. So we have rewritten those online training modules, of which this video is a part. COVID, of course, played a part in that. We needed to get as much training online as possible so that when people are able to attend a face-to-face level 1 workshop, we can make that as practical as possible. So those learnings were really put to good use by enabling us to get most of our theory online, and the practical workshop will be face-to-face or practical for people to enjoy.
Why was SAVEM established?
SAVEM was established in 2009 after the Black Saturday bushfires in Victoria in February in that year, when some veterinary colleagues and I got together and had a look at what arrangements were in place for veterinary emergency management in South Australia for if and when the next large fire happened here, and we found those arrangements to be wanting. So 6 of us, really led by the now SAVEM training team coordinator, who was then working in emergency management at Primary Industries and Regions SA, PIRSA, got together and wrote the first version of the SAVEM plan. That then went up to the apply to join state arrangements in December of 2010, and then we became what is known as a participating agency in the Agriculture and Animal Services Functional Support Group, which is led by Primary Industries and Regions SA. There are about 7 or 8 participating agencies, and SAVEM was one of those.
How is SAVEM funded?
Well, SAVEM is a 100% volunteer agency. Nobody is paid, nobody's on wages or salary, but we do try, where possible, to reimburse volunteers for out-of-pocket expenses like phone and fuel and things like that. That's not always possible, but it's certainly our aim. Otherwise, SAVEM is funded by 3 main sources: competitive government grants and corporate grants that we apply for, from philanthropic donations, from organisations and members of the public, and some of them are long-term supporters. And also donations from the members of the public, and that usually happens when they hear about us when there's a large event happening. So that's usually able to be done through our website or through our bank account. We don't actively go out and seek fundraising, but with competitive grants have certainly helped us a great deal.
What is the role of the organisation?
SAVEM's role is to enable the veterinary community in South Australia to mount an effective response to any emergency. So we train to all hazards, so that's not just fires, although we talk about fires a lot in South Australia, but it could be floods, or it could be earthquake, or it could be a number of other hazards as well. So, but our role is to enable the veterinary community, and that's vets, vet nurses, wildlife carers, other people with specialist skills to offer, to be able to mount an effective response. And our role is essentially to, on fire ground or on incident ground, is to assess, retrieve, triage, treat, return to owner, habitat or suitable long-term shelter animals of all species. We do train to work with animals of all species. And we've been fortunate enough to collect some awards along the way since our instigation. In 2012, we were actually the state winner in the Resilient Australia Awards, and we were runner-up in the national finals in Canberra. There have been other awards too, particularly after Samson Flat Fire, when we received awards from the Premier and from the Governor, from the CFS, and we were a finalist in the Pride of Australia medal back in 2015 as well, as a result of Samson Flat 2015 fires.
When is SAVEM called in to provide assistance?
There's quite a rigorous protocol for that, because on no account should SAVEM self-activate. That's completely against all the fundamental principles of emergency management. So what happens is that we are activated, with a capital A, by Primary Industries and Regions SA, who are our hazard leader in what's called the Agriculture and Animal Services Functional Support Group. So when a big event happens, whatever that incident may be, we establish communication between the SAVEM coordinator / commander and Primary Industries state controller. And that could be a phone call either way, but we need to establish that communication before SAVEM can be activated. And we may then be stood up put on standby. And that happens usually quite quickly, close to the beginning of a going fire, if we're talking about fire. And then we'll attend briefings. And once we have clearing from the briefings agencies and from the control agency, which is the CFS for bushfire, then we can attend a fire ground, attend briefings on fire ground and go from there. But it's a very strict process of activation. On no account, I must stress, on no account should we self-activate.
Over the past 10 years since you were formed, what are some of the emergencies SAVEM has attended?
Over the last 10 years, SAVEM has attended 16 activations formally. During our first 5 years, there were some slightly smaller events. We went to the Eden Valley Fire in 2014, Crafers West, Rockley, unfortunately for that community, 3 times. And then in 2015, another big year for fires. We had the Kiama Fire, which was a smaller fire down near Mount Compass in 2015. But of course, the big that year began with the Samson Flat Fire, which was our first big test. It was a large fire, it was uncontrolled for at least 7 days, and that fire was generally considered a really great collaborative effort by the emergency services generally, and it really set the standard that we'd all like to surpass, given our mantra of continuous improvement. The year 2015 was a bad one, finished with the Pinery Fire, which was a very, very nasty cropland fire. Cropland fires are renowned for being very fast, very hot, very fierce. And Pinery lived up to all of that, and there were 2 human fatalities in that fire. Since then, of course, we've had the 2019-2020 Black Summer of bushfires. Kangaroo Island, 200,000 hectare fire. The Cuddly Creek Fire immediately preceding that. It did actually start at the same time with 25,000 hectares. And those 2 fires really have changed how we will work and how we will be activated and how we will respond, really changed completely. So I think we can really draw a line under 2019 and go from there.
You've talked about bushfires, but what other emergency situations might SAVEM attend?
We all tend to think of bushfires, don't we? Because in South Australia, it's generally bushfire is the most frequent natural hazard. Our floods that we have are nothing like the floods they have in other states and in the tropics, of course. But we do train to all hazards. It's very important to remember that, and the system we use, which we'll talk about later, Australasian Inter-Service Incident Management System, is a system for any of the hazards. So other hazards include things like flood, of course, earthquake, extreme weather events, terrorism, those sorts of things. There are 9 listed in the State Emergency Management Plan, 9 or 10. So we do train to all hazards, and it's very important to remember that flexibility of being able to respond to any of those hazards is equally as important as bushfire, although yes, primarily it is bushfire in this state.
So if someone wants to join SAVEM, how do they volunteer?
Well, the first thing people need to do is to register on the SAVEM website. And that tells us a little bit about people's background, their qualifications, that kind of thing, the kind of experience they may have had in this kind of work previously. Then they need to complete the online training modules, which is what this video is part of. So they complete that and they send in an answer sheet, which they can download all this and do it at their own pace in their own time. And after that, they attend a face-to-face workshop, what we call Level 1. The online material is mandatory to be accepted into the Level 1 program, and that's a 1-day face-to-face program. I do need to say that not everybody who is completing a Level 1 is accepted as a SAVEM volunteer, because you do need to come along with the right attitude as far as being a team player is concerned. You need the attitude, behaviour, culture, discipline. The ABCD of being a team player is very, very important. And emergency management is not for everyone. Veterinary emergency management can be very, very confronting. It's horrific, some of the things that can't be unseen on a fire ground. And it isn't for everyone. There are many other roles, however, of support roles. The general rule we say is that it takes 4 people to support 1 person in field. So there are many other roles that people can contribute to. And obviously we are veterinary emergency management, we need veterinarians, but nurses of course, wildlife carers, because often we have involved very heavily with wildlife, other people with specialist skills such as logistics or IT also. So it's, we'd make no apology for the fact that we do expect a lot of people. We're continually assessing people at the Level 1 workshop. workshop, and if people do tick all the right boxes, then we'll hopefully send them off to the next response, maybe a smaller one, and maybe with the supervision of an experienced mentor or team leader.
If the volunteer is already working in the veterinary field, do they need to undertake further training, or can they just sign up?
Training is critical. Training applies to everybody. Every SAVEM volunteer does the same training. There are no two sets of rules, there are no exceptions for anybody at all. So everybody must learn the same system and be on the same page to be able to carry out their role effectively. And that means understanding the Australasian Inter-Service Incident Management System, AIMS, and how that works. People need to be able to apply those roles, and they're also listed in part of those in the SAVEM plan. And it also means that people do have to remember that they need to be a team player. You can be a great vet, have great veterinary skills, and if you're not a team player or you don't understand how emergency management and chain of command works, you're really not going to fit in. It's absolutely critical that people bring their professional skills with them, and we assume that, of course, but this is really about not doing veterinary stuff. It's about emergency management and emergency management systems, how to behave on a fire ground, how to follow chain of command, how to slot in and be a team player and not go off and think that because you're a vet, you just know it all, which is not the case.
Some people may only want to work out in the field saving animals and would prefer to work alone. Is this okay?
No, certainly not. You must never work alone. Fire grounds and incident grounds are very, very dangerous places. SAVEM trains to a very strong culture of safety. It's critical that you understand that you cannot go out and put yourself or others in danger. So you must always follow the directions of your team leader, follow the chain of command. Things like falling trees, white ash, which can hide craters full of burning underground tree roots, things like that. I heard just yesterday of a story about somebody whose elastic-sided boot was burnt onto their bone of their leg when they fell into a white ash crater. Falling trees are one of the biggest risks on fire ground. So no, we absolutely insist that people work in a team, that they understand the team structure. They'll never be asked to do anything that we don't believe they're trained for or equipped for, but working alone is an absolute no-no. If people show an indication that they might be doing that, they'll certainly be relieved of their position and may not be asked to come to a SAVEM response again.
If volunteers get sent to an emergency situation, will they be in danger?
Fire grounds are dangerous places, but we train so that you'll be able to go home safely to your family and friends after your shift ends. And as long as you adhere to the directions of your team leader, the directions that come down from above from chain of command, operate under what we call dynamic risk assessment conditions, and you'll learn about that in the face-to-face level 1 workshop, then you're going to go home safely after a tiring but rewarding day.
What sort of work could volunteers be doing?
Well, there are a number of roles that volunteers could be doing. That might be in a field team, in the operations area, it might be with planning, or it might be with logistics, remembering that it takes about 4 people out of field to support 1 person in field. But you also might find that you're working with primary industries, helping them with a livestock response. Or you could be with SAVEM teams working with horses or wildlife or companion animals. There are a number of roles, and any of those roles that you could be asked to undertake, we'll make sure that you have the appropriate training and experience, or will have the help of an appropriate mentor and team leader to enable you to carry out those roles effectively. It's also very important to remember the emergency management mantra of hurry up and wait. People are very eager, we understand that, to get out into the field and to get out and do the work. But sometimes you just have to remember to hurry up and wait for the instructions so that you'll be safe and effective in what you're tasked to do.
So how does SAVEM's work differ from that of the RSPCA or wildlife rescue groups?
There's quite a big difference between what SAVEM does and what the RSPCA and other fauna and wildlife rescue groups do, because we only respond when there is an emergency. We don't respond to day-to-day incidents like hit by cars or animals wandering at large or things like that. That's the day-to-day business as usual core business of the other groups. Having said that, we will try to connect a need with a service, because we do quite often receive phone calls from rangers or members of the public who have found an animal in distress. So we'll try and connect a need with the service wherever possible, but it's not our day-to-day role.
If volunteers complete all the training, When will they get to attend an emergency?
Well, once a volunteer has completed their online and their level 1 face-to-face, then they'll be eligible to be considered to join a SAVEM response. But the commander and the incident management team will select people based on the complexity of the incident and the demands and requirements of the incident, because they're all different. So not everybody who's trained will get to attend a fire that year. We hope that we'll be able to put them into a smaller response so that they can be mentored and get some experience under their belt. It's also important to remember that people are expected to attend refresher training annually to keep their skills up, to keep abreast of changes in the area, and so that they'll be continually able to update their skills and be most effective and useful in a SAVEM response.
What can volunteers expect if they're accepted into SAVEM?
Well, veterinary emergency management is a great discipline, a fabulous discipline, but it's no walk in the park, and it's not for everybody, quite understandably so. But volunteers can expect to receive support, they can receive training that is relevant for their everyday lives as well as in a response. They make great friends. They'll be lifelong friends of people, of like-minded people. SAVEM has also established a reputation of credibility and trust amongst the emergency services over the last 10 years, and we do expect our volunteers to contribute to that reputation and keep that up, so they have a responsibility to the agency as well.
If people have more questions, who can they contact for more information?
There are 3 ways people can contact us. The first is via the inquiry form, which people will find on the SAVEM website. They can also email directly to info@savem.org.au, or they can phone the duty SAVEM officer on 0477 055 233.